Welcome to episode 4 of the Party Wagon Podcast, where we talk about all things TMNT, past, present, and future. I'm your host, Eric, from the YouTube channel No You Grow Up.
And I'm the other host, Brendan, from the YouTube channel Brendan's Rambles. And before we jump into any Turtles news, which we have some Turtles news, some comic news, some toy news, just wanted to say this episode is going up on Valentine's Day, actually, the audio version. So I wanted to ask you, do you and Lacey have anything planned for Valentine's Day?
No, we'll probably do something low-key the next weekend, but I've never been one to want to fight the crowd on the actual Valentine's Day, and luckily she doesn't really care either, so that works out well for both of us.
That's good. You're not going to see Ant-Man or...
No, nothing like that. The same way with movies. I don't like going to see them right away. I'll usually wait till towards the tail end when it's like us and 3 other people in there. That's usually the way I like to see my movies too.
Yeah, me too. Unless it's like a big event that's going to be spoiled, then it's like something like, what was it, the Force Awakens came out or whatever, and like we were all hyped like, oh, Star Wars is going to be awesome again, and that didn't happen. But I saw that right away. I guess Valentine's Day is an easy holiday for you guys.
How about you? Meet anybody?
Nope.
Nope.
Valentine's Day is any other day for me. For me, right. It's a Tuesday.
And the day after is cheap chocolate day.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you go to Rite Aid or Walgreens and all the chocolate's just like 20 cents for a bag. It's the same exact chocolate that's like $5 in the normal candy aisle, but it's red. So, right. Well, yeah, I guess we'll get right into the turtle news. I guess before we talk about toys, I have a couple rants I got to get out of my system when it comes to the toys. But first, we're just going to talk about the Ronin-verse, the last Ronin universe, which is continuing now. We have met the next generation of Ninja Turtles, basically.
Yeah, I feel like it was definitely what I would consider. I mean, they definitely had full appearances, but we really didn't get a whole lot of it at first. They're just kind of like the babies right now. So, and they just seem to all kind of, I don't know. Like I said, it's going to be a little bit before I feel like we get any real character development. I feel like they're going to make it kind of a slow burn.
So I've seen their design. Their names are what? Yi, Odin.
Yep. Was Uno?
Was it Moha or Moya or Moya or what? I don't know how you're supposed to say it. Moja. I don't.
Yeah, the names usually take me a while to pick up on anyway, so it'll take me a while for them to hit. Odin is the one I can remember because I mean that's just a pretty easy name to remember.
Yeah.
So.
And then there's Uno. Uno is the other boy.
Uno, yeah.
So Odin and Uno are the boys, and Yi and Moha or Moya. I don't know how the hell you're supposed to say her name. The one that looks like a Reese's peanut butter cup. She's like brown and orange. Those are the turtles. It seems like as of right now, I can't really tell. It seems like Uno is kind of the jerk. Odin is the one who eats because that's a personality in the world of cartoons. The other 2 exist. I don't know anything about them yet. Yeah, the one thing I have to say I found weird. So have you seen like the actual comic page with them when they're like little kids and they're all like goofing off and then
so I actually just recently this weekend read the first issue of the
year,
so
you're much more familiar with them than I am. So
yeah, you remember their names better than I did already. So
why do they talk like cavemen? Is that just because like they're babies?
I think it's because they're babies. I'm assuming that's why, but also because I mean I'm assuming they're having a fast evolution kind of situation too. You know what I mean? Like I know, like I imagine by the end of this arc they're gonna be fully grown, you know what I mean? So I don't know if there's going to be like time skips that happen, but I'd assume it's kind of like a fast grow up. So they're probably learning very quickly. But I mean, I don't know. It does seem more like exactly like they're trying to overplay the baby thing a bit to where, I mean, I almost feel like normal human babies can almost talk better than that to begin with.
Yeah. Because they're talking like you Tarzan, me Tarzan, you Jane. Like they're talking like,
yeah, exactly.
Like, we've seen them like grown up or teenagers, I guess. We've seen them as teenagers, and Odin's like huge. They're all different turtles. There's like he's a snapper, and then I think Uno's like an albino turtle or something. He's like whitish kind of.
Yep, I noticed
and,
that.
I don't know what the brown and orange one. I don't know what she's supposed to be, if she's like a box turtle or something. But
well, I mean, because is she a painted turtle?
Painted turtles are like orange and black in the water, like in real life. So I don't know. That might be like their version of a painted turtle because none of them look like real turtles. So the Ninja Turtles have never looked like real turtles. I guess the big question is like, do you think these characters are going to have staying power outside of this universe? Are they going to start getting their own toys and their own comics and maybe even their own spin-off franchises, like how we have like a million different versions of the four turtles. Are these four turtles going to get more versions, or do you think they're just a one and done deal kind of thing?
So I feel like the way they're setting up the Ronin verse right now, I feel like they're going to let it kind of branch out both ways. And I feel like as long as the books are moving, they're probably going to keep putting out miniseries. You know what I mean? I don't know how much you look at like normal Facebook stuff and like that stuff, but there's been articles going around. They're like, 4 new female turtles replace the turtles and stuff like that. And like,
which isn't true. Only 2 of them are female.
Yeah, exactly. I wasn't even sure about the sexes at first either. I knew at least one was a female, but I wasn't sure about the others.
It's hard to tell. Even Uno, the tall boy one, I thought it was a female turtle at first. Actually, when I saw it, I couldn't tell.
Yeah, looking at their more grown-up pictures, the one kind of looks like Mona Lisa a little bit to me. You know what I mean? She does kind of have a little bit more of a feminine build. It looks like.
Oh, that's a Yi. I think you're talking about.
Okay.
Right?
Gotcha. Yeah. So. Again, I don't know their names. I don't have them all lined up right now other than Odin. So
I can't say Yi without thinking of that meme. Have you ever seen the meme of like the bootleg Land Before Time ripoff movie?
Oh no.
And the dinosaur goes like Yi, and that was like the whole meme. Like that's all I can think of every time I hear it. But
yeah, but getting back to your question, I think as long as the books are selling, I think they'll keep that miniseries going. But I feel like that's where they'll stay. Like,
yeah.
I feel like when like Jenica came out, they really wanted to push her hard as the 5th turtle, so they did give her her own spin-off book. But the Ronin is already a spin-off of the regular ongoing series. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
I don't think they're gonna ever bring them back to the normal series because it's so far into the future. You know what I mean? So I feel like they are just gonna kind of stick to that Ronin verse, and if that end of the story keeps going well, I'm sure they'll keep going with it.
Yeah, I think people are like, there are some people, some diehard turtle fans who have this misconception, I think, where they think like this is the new generation of turtles and like they're going to make a cartoon show of them and movies of them. It's like, nothing that is invented within the comics really ever gets that big. So it's like these days, I mean, the original turtles spawned all of this. But exactly, Jenica has never appeared in like a Nickelodeon cartoon show. Or
yeah, and I mean, she's been around for going on like 3 years-ish at this point, maybe not longer. I mean, she came out in the late 90s of that run. So, I mean, she's been around for a while. And they added, they put a Mona Lisa in there too. I think she was like a robot. Again, I haven't read that part of the story yet.
No, Mona Lisa, I think you've been calling Venus de Milo Mona Lisa.
Yes, yep, Venus de Milo. That's what I'm thinking of. Yeah.
Yeah. I think you're talking about the turtles, like it looks like Mona Lisa. I'm like, Mona Lisa had hair. I don't remember any of them looking like Mona Lisa.
I was getting those confused then.
Yeah. See, this is where, just not to get too deep into IDW, this is where my problems with IDW kind of come with. And I had some problems with this in the 2012 cartoon too. I love the 2012 cartoon. It's a great show. But a lot of times these modern versions of Turtles, they try to like, oh, we're bringing this character back. But it's like, it's not that character at all. It's like, so Venus de Milo is like a frog. She was like a punk frog who was like taken apart and Frankenstein monstered into like a turtle Frankenstein creature powered by like a red gemstone that comes from a cosmic dragon or some crazy crap. And it's like, what the hell is this? Venus de Milo was just like a female turtle. Like, what is
right?
So it's like, yeah, we brought Venus de Milo back. It's like, no, you didn't. You created a new character and slapped her name on it. So it's like, I feel like it's kind of a cheat way of saying, like, look, your childhood's coming back. Like they do that a lot. And then what they actually give us is like not really at all what the character was. It's just a name. So I think that's what they did.
So I kind of like that about the 2012 series, though, is I like that a lot of the characters kind of got their own spins, and some of them, I mean, like, so have you seen a lot of the 2012 series?
I've seen a good deal of it, yeah.
Okay, so have you ever seen any episodes that the Rat King's in?
Yes, I have seen those.
Dude, he's terrifying in that. You know what I mean? Like, I kind of like his character. I'm not going to say more because he is one of my favorite characters from the OG cartoon. But, yeah. I mean, he's just, like, I like that spin that they put on him because in the comics, he's kind of darker like that, too. Like, I'm pretty sure in his first appearance, I'm pretty sure he makes Splinter eat rats or something like that to survive.
Yeah, he's also like, he's actually dead the first time we see him. It's like the ghost of the Rat King is like appearing to Splinter. So it's like it's funny that his first appearance is like after he's already dead.
Right.
Yeah, I think he always was a much more dark character. It's just like, I mean, even in like the first the toy line when he appeared, he was one of the grossest looking toys at that time. In the cartoon, everyone was like, made to be like much lighter in tone and everything. But Yeah, the Rat King, I think that wasn't so much that they were like reinventing him for the 2012 cartoon. More so they were doing him a bit more faithful to all the adaptations that had existed already, and they kind of put them all together. Then you have stuff like Razar, where like he's Chuck Norris turned into Dog Pound, who gets turned into a skeleton wolf called Razar, and it's like he was just a baby wolf. Like, like why is he Chuck Norris now? But
because again, in the 2012 show, that's one where he kind of looks like Wendigo too, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does. He looks like some creepy Wendigo.
Yeah. So again, like I feel like I don't know. Like I said, that's kind of the thing that I like about the 2012 series is it does get a little bit more like I mean, I don't know what I want to call it. Definitely not hardcore is not the right word, but it is a little bit more like on that like kind of has like not quite as hardcore, but like a real Ghostbusters type vibe a little bit. You know what I mean? Where it's like this is kind of creepy for a kids show. So
yeah, his design is definitely real Ghostbusters. They had a few monsters and stuff that were like, whoa, they're going a little crazy with this one.
Yeah.
But I do like that. Yeah. It's not so much that they made them dark. I just don't like when they change the characters so much that it's not even the same character. There are some characters like Worm and Mona Lisa that it's like, why'd you even call them that? Like, there's no reason for this character to be this character. But
if it's not even inside the spirit of that character, then that's exactly how I feel about it. You know what I mean? Like there has to be some kind of spiritual connection one way or another for it to really resonate. Or like you said, it should just be an original character.
Yeah. I feel like the first 3 seasons, they did it pretty good. There were some crazy twists like Irma and stuff. I was fine with that because that was just so mind blowing. But in season 4, that's the space season, right? When they're like traveling space. And
so that's, yeah, because then 5's the one that's all like short story kind of.
Tales of TMNT.
Yeah, Tales of the TMNT or whatever.
So season 4 is where they I just felt like they started to do that too much, where all these characters they were bringing back, like they were just like Toka and Worm and Mona Lisa and stuff. Just they're totally different characters, and they're just slapping names on there. Neutrinos also were like a microorganism, like bioweapon. Like they weren't even characters. And it's like they just slapped the names on there, and it's just in no way the original character. Just like, look, reference, and you're happy now because you saw the reference. Also, I think that's just when the show started to lose me in general. I didn't like the writing as much anymore at that point and stuff.
That's kind of the first 3 seasons. Like every time the 2 times I've tried looping through it, I'll like watch most of the first 3 seasons, and then I kind of start to fall off when they get into the space and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like, and again, that's probably the bummer that caused that show to go downhill is they just got too far away from the status quo. And then by the last season, I mean, there was no continuity left really.
Yeah. I think that's the problem. The last season, the highlight was Usagi, but that was they kind of had Hothead. Again, there's like a demon and like Mike calls him Hothead, I think at one point or something, but it's not Hothead. But anyway, we're going way off topic here. We'll do an episode about the 2012 cartoon at some point. But yeah, that's basically all I have to say about the new Ronin verse Turtles. I don't know much about them. I was just confused why they were talking like Captain Caveman, but
yeah, and like the last thing I want to kind of touch on that is the point you made about like how everybody thinks like this is going to be their new push. I mean, like you said, they're not going to get action figures. We haven't even really gotten any IDW action figures to begin with. You know what I mean?
Yeah, except for the Ronin. But
yeah, exactly. But again, I mean, that was just such a gangbuster series. There's no way they weren't going to capitalize on that. But I mean, we haven't even gotten regular Turtles. And like I said, no, there's never been any type of Jenica character from any company. So I feel like if they were going to start anywhere, it would be with the more established character. If they have, again, I think it's going to be a long time before even NECA touches IDW.
In general, they've had such a long run, IDW, but in general, they're not like by critics and stuff. They're not like the most successful or beloved version of the Turtles. I think there's people who love them. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying nobody loves them, but I think like when you look at all like different facets of Turtles in media, that like the comics are probably aside from Last Ronin, that's probably where they've been struggling the most in recent years, because the toys have been doing gangbusters. Well, actually, Rise didn't do very good. Toys have been doing gangbusters. Movies will always do gangbusters and stuff. So video games have been doing great. I think the IDW comics are kind of like probably the last license that people like NECA and Super 7 and stuff are even looking at to make Turtles toys of, probably. So
yeah, and I mean, because I know for a while the run numbers of the main series were like in the tens of thousands. So that's a pretty, I mean, even by today's standards, not a great run number. And That's also probably because a lot of people like me, like I get the A and the B cover because I'm really there for the Eastman cover, and then I'll read the A cover, you know what I mean? So I
Yeah.
feel like they also just get a lot of sales through like variant covers and retailer exclusive covers and stuff like that too. So the amount
Yeah.
of people that are actually reading IDW TMNT, I bet it's probably less than 10,000 people.
It probably is, honestly. And I know they go crazy with the variant covers also. They go the last Ronin, they went nuts with the variant covers, but they made a whole book recently, an art book that's just all the variant covers in
Right?
the book. So it's like the IDW. I've heard IDW for a while, for months now, has been on the verge of bankruptcy. I don't know how true
That's
that
been going
is.
on for like years. People have been calling for that. Like that's been the rumor for a while. But I mean, I don't know. Hopefully, like I got a lot of high hopes kind of coming into this next arc and stuff like that. Like I said, I'm going to read Armageddon Game. Everybody's super stoked on that. And again, the TMNT, it's never going to be the IDW series, this Gangbusters comic. It's always going to be. It's backed by Turtles fans. You know what I mean? If you're not a Turtles fan, you're probably not reading Turtles books. It's not like other than the Ronin, there was a lot of spec in that, so I feel like that created a lot of excitement. But it really is just the hardcore TMNT fans keeping that book alive.
And even then, like hardcore comic readers too. Like I read the Ronin because it was just I was hearing so much buzz about it, but I don't follow IDW normally. I don't read. I hear like, synopsis is what's been happening, but I don't actually like read the books. But anyway, I guess we'll get into, I have some rants to do about, I'm sorry, Playmates, but I got to get back on Playmates. So the new one, what is it called? Like, what do they call it?
The ultimate, their version of the ultimate figures or whatever.
Yeah. It's like Assassin Force or Shadow Ninjas or whatever the hell they're calling it. Like the line that's like the same, 6-inch figures they've been releasing for since 2008 or whatever, and just they have the Triceraton and the Shredder, and I saw them in stores recently along with those movie turtles where they're wearing the trench coats, the Mike and Leo who never wore the trench coat. I saw them in hand, and I have to say that Shredder looked so bad in person. The way of how short his mouth guard is, he wouldn't have like a chin or a bottom jaw or anything. The guy who used to be able the old guy used to be able to swallow his own face. Like he looked like that underneath there, because it's like his head would end right at under his top row of teeth. It's like he has no chin. It's so. And then his eyes, they look like angry Eric Cartman eyes, and his shoulder pads are just hovering above his shoulders, and it's just so cheap looking. And the Triceraton's almost a cool figure, actually, but it's just cheap. That's the only way I can describe it. So the torso is sculpted in this gray plastic. It's not even really shiny or metallic or anything. It's just, I'm not expecting vac metal, but it's just dull gray. The only way I can describe it is it's dollar store gray plastic. That kind of it's kind of swirly. It's kind of translucent unintentionally because it's just so weak. And and then they just painted orange at his chest, and it doesn't match the orange of his head at all. And it's just too little too late from Playmates, and they're charging $20 a figure. And it's well, we could just get the Loyal Subjects figures for that. That's, if you want a lower end, a cheaper quote unquote collector version of Turtles figures right now, that's easier to obtain than NECA or Super 7, you can just go with Loyal Subjects.
I mean, at that price point, that's definitely the move, because you've already gotten a ton of volume out of that line, you know what I mean? If you wanted to go all Loyal Subjects, you could have a pretty cool collection going right now from those figures. Yeah. And honestly, they seem to be going in a positive direction. Like I said, I'm kind of keeping an eye on them from afar, and I'm definitely going to grab that Image Casey. But those are the figures that, if all the other figures are cleaned out, those are the last ones on the peg, are those 6-inch figures. I've seen those at my Target. I've seen those at my Walmart today, which my Walmart finally just stocked for the first time, which part of the problem.
I've seen the storage shells come back. I haven't seen the pizza launchers come back.
Yeah, so today's the first day I saw the pizza ones. So I grabbed all 3 of those, and I said this on the live show on Toy Domination, but I saw the storage shells. I was so excited to get them. The case just got put out. There's 2 of each. I was looking through, grabbing the best cards, and I ended up with 2 Michelangelos instead of a Donatello because I'm a moron. So
Oh crap.
yeah, so I'll have to even that out. But yeah, and again, I am like a sucker for the original re-release figures and stuff like that. Like I just love the novelty of going to the store and seeing the figures that I saw as a kid. Like it just does something to me. You know what I mean? Like I was so excited to see the storage shelf figures that like I couldn't even grab the right ones, and I'm never that kind of person. But and again, I've beat this horse to death as well. Like their 6-inch line is just not what they should be spending any time, energy, or resources on. Like, and I get that some people like it, different strokes for different folks and stuff like that. But it just doesn't have a place for me, and they're just not good. Like you said, the Triceraton is definitely objectively just the best looking figure, but still the scale is just so far off to the turtles. And that's really just what bothers me. Like that's honestly my biggest peeve about the Loyal Subjects line too, is I feel like Shredder is too small compared to the turtles and stuff like that. And
Bebop's small. And
yeah, but I mean, other than that, like I would say that I would rather have those than any of those Playmate 6-inch figures for sure. And again, I don't know why they just, because clearly the old school OG Playmate stuff is moving, you know what I mean? That stuff is not sitting on pegs, it's moving fast. So I don't know why, if they're just going to do the lazy thing, that's what they should be doing, is just whatever molds they have left, start filling them with plastic. And I mean, if that's the bare minimum you want to put forth, at least that gets people excited to get figures that they might want for Playmates that are just insane prices on the aftermarket. Like I don't know what the pizza tossers go for with all their pizzas working. I mean, I would imagine they're probably around $40 a pop at minimum, but just being able to get a brand new one for $15. Like, I mean, again, I don't consider that an OG figure. I'll never display it with my OG figures, but if I never get those pizza tossing figures, like I'll still have something that just gives me that nostalgic vibe.
It's been, honestly, I already have, all the storage shell turtles with all their pieces and stuff. I saw storage shell Leo on the shelf and I was so tempted to buy it just because it's like, oh shit, it's a vintage Turtles package in 2023 sitting on the shelf. It looks like my childhood just hanging up in Walmart. So it was like, I had to stop myself from, because I had to be like, dude, I know it's only $10, but you own it already. You own the real one. Like you don't need this. You're running out of room as it is already. So I have to say, actually, I've seen the Bubble Walker Krang for Loyal Subjects already. Real quick, just a side note thing. I was at a toy store by me yesterday, and he had it out like on the shelf, like out of its package, and it's way too big. Like he's humongous, but it looks fantastic. I think objectively, it's probably the best. It's better looking as a Toon Krang than NECA's. Actually, it's just too big. He's massive. So,
is he like as tall as the turtles are if he's standing straight up?
Yeah, basically. So like their heads are like this big. Krang himself is like that big. So it's like he's just massive. So I don't know why they're doing that. They have much better luck putting out like you said, the vintage stuff. That stuff flies. Like I never see it show up. But unfortunately, the vintage re-releases is what leads me to my major rant that I have so many problems with. So recently, Playmates claimed they were reissuing the vintage giant turtles. Anyone who grew up when we grew up in the late 80s, early 90s remembers the giant turtles. They were awesome. They were, these big vinyl, hollow, beefy figures. You could just beat the crap out of them, and they were super durable. And they had the cloth belts and everything, and they were just huge. I have a whole list of flaws with them, and I'm gonna go in order of worst to least egregious, I guess. The worst thing is every single one of them, all 4 of them, have Raph's head. They don't have their unique heads anymore. They just took Raph's head sculpt and copied it 4 times and just colored them differently. That's inexcusable to me, because it's like that was part of the original lines, that the turtles all had different faces and different expressions and stuff. So you're just essentially buying recolors of Raph like 4 times now. My second biggest problem is they're smaller than the old ones. They're not the same scale. So it's like they're noticeably smaller than the old ones. Another problem is they don't have the cloth belts anymore. The belts are sculpted onto them, or like it's a separate piece, but it's like connected to them. It's plastic.
I didn't even notice that. I saw them today, and I didn't even because I kind of overlooked them right now anyway, because again, of all the things I'm spending money on right now, that's at the backest of burners for me. So
the price isn't bad. I'll give them that. I think they're like
$25 exactly. That's why, I mean, eventually down the road, if I have a couple extra bucks, I probably will grab at least the RAF.
The problem is, well, you're getting RAF whether you like it or not, because all 4 of them are technically RAF. The problem is like, I feel like, because, it's hard to get those vintage ones with their accessories or with their belts and stuff. This would have been a great way for people to get new belts or new weapons for their vintage ones. But everything is scaled down and the belts are connected. They're plastic and connected to the figures. They're like rigid that kind of plastic. It feels like if you smashed it against the table, it would just shatter into a bunch of pieces. Like it feels like it's a popsicle or something. It's just going to break apart. And they did it even for like the shell. The shell isn't painted. It's like a separate yellow piece of plastic just stuck onto them. And they're not made out of that like durable vinyl anymore. The old ones were. The old ones were hollow. They didn't even have seams on them. They were just stuck together like hollow vinyl. These new ones are just like generic like action figure plastic. So it's like your kids aren't going to be able to beat them around the way they did the old ones. The arms will break off and stuff probably, and they'll chip. And I mean, the old ones got paint scuffs all over them all the time. But still, it's like my big problem, I guess, is they're fine if you just want to get your kid like, something fun. If you're a casual fan who doesn't care about like Turtles, you don't still have your collection. You're just like, oh, I had this as a kid. Let me get it for my kid. They'll have fun playing with a toy that gave me joy when I was little. But if you're like us, if you're weirdos like us and you still have all your childhood toys and stuff, or you bought them back and stuff like that, if you're a collector, this isn't what you want, because that's what you're going after. Is like, here's a way to get your childhood back. But this isn't our childhood. These aren't the figures we grew up with. This is just lies. So it's like the storage shell turtles, those are basically the toys from our childhood. The paint's a little different and stuff, but they're essentially the same figures. These are completely different. The different size, the different head sculpts and stuff, like the plastic belts, they're not the same. And it's not the biggest crime. It's just a dumb toy for like $20, but it just seems like your intention is to bring back something classic from the 80s, but you're not doing that at all. You're saying you're doing that, but you're not doing that at all. So that's my problem with it. It's just like, what is the purpose of these? I guess they just think people won't notice, but.
So I take it you probably have a life and don't spend a lot of times in Facebook groups, do you?
I have not used Facebook in like 7 years.
Okay, well, good for you, because then your mind's probably not poisoned like mine is. But so these things are, I mean, people are just going apeshit for these things, man. Like, they are the one thing where, like, I don't know, people are going nuts for the giant sized turtles. And like you said, like, if I wouldn't have found my giant sized Mikey, my original one, like, I probably would feel differently about these ones, because I could be like, okay, here's my chance to get what's very expensive right now for figures. But after getting him, like, he's just so much cooler. Like, and I hate to be like, again, I'm not trying to be like elitist or anything. Like, I don't even have that cool of a fucking Playmates collection or anything, but like, just looking when I actually saw them in the stores, like, it was just like, okay, I mean, these just definitely are not as good, you know what I mean? And it's not like I was bummed about it, because like I said, they would have been on the back burner for me anyway, out of all the stuff that's coming out right now. Because also, I mean, NECA is about to start putting out a ton of stuff too, so I mean, that's kind of where I'm saving my money right now. But like you said, these turtles, they're not even the same molds to begin with. They clearly made brand new molds to do this with. Like, they're totally different size. And that's the first thing people really started pointing out in groups. They're like, whoa, these aren't the same molds. They're a different size. And the original ones, was there 2 different heads, or did all 4 of them actually have different heads?
All 4 of them actually had different heads.
Okay. So they all are definitely the same exact mold for sure on this one. It was the cheapest route for them to go, and that's exactly what they did. And it's funny, because a lot of people, I think they got like the Leonardo, and they're like, he only comes with 1 sword, but the original one only came with 1 sword too, I'm pretty sure. They
all came with just one. Even like the giant samurai ones, they came with like 1 weapon each and stuff.
And this one, again, like, because again, it's not this is easy stuff for me to be like, okay, if I don't like it, I just don't care. You know what I mean? It's not like Super 7 to where we get 10 figures a year. Each one really matters to me. You know what I mean? Like, so if one of them is jacked up, it's a bummer. But with this stuff, I mean, it is like I saw them in stores, and I mean, of everything on the shelves, I'm like, I'm grabbing these pizza tossers, and that's all I need right now. Like if I come back in a couple weeks and I grab some more of the retro stuff, I'll grab them. But it really, like I said, I even posted something on my YouTube channel when they first came out because I assumed they were just going to be re-releases of the original, so I was super excited about it too. And then after people started pointing it out, all the same head sculpts are a little bit smaller and stuff like that, it did kind of take a little bit of wind out of my sails for my anticipation on these. And then I saw Mikey and Leo in the store today, and again, they're cool. I may get them down the road, but they're just not something that I'm just clamoring for right now either, especially with so much other great stuff coming out.
I mean, there's even stuff as lazy as like the teeth. They didn't put the spaces between
lines,
the teeth, all white. They just took white paint and just put it across the face. And like, I mean, if I didn't have the originals, like I have the Mikey's right back there. He's like right there. So
is he the only one you have too?
He's the only one I have also. Yeah.
Crazy.
I got him for a great price at a mall. They were doing like a show like in the halls of the mall, and like a toy show. And I got him for it was like $25 I got him for.
Whoa.
The belt, the nunchuck. He has like a little bit of a scratch on his nose, and I think he has like a scratch on his shell, but like it was an insanely good. This was like 2019 I got him.
Yeah, usually you can't even get a naked beat up one for that. I mean, even in that ballpark. So
that was the same year I got the giant Bebop and Rocksteady down there behind me, and I got them together.
Those are the really hard ones to find. I've never seen those anywhere ever.
They don't have their weapons, but I got the big ones, and they're in pretty good shape. Rocksteady has some green on his nose. He was beating up some turtles. I got both of them together for like $111. And then the woman I bought them from threw in, free of charge, the giant movie Raph and movie Leo as well. So I got 4 giant figures for $111. It was like the craziest bid I ever won on eBay. Like, I don't know how I got that.
Well, that was an eBay bid?
That was an eBay bid, and I got them because she said that like they were getting married, and she was throwing out everything he ever loved, I guess. So she's just selling, like, this is all your stupid crap. Let's just sell your crap.
Oh, so God, not even getting good value for it either, just to add insult to injury.
She sold his childhood memories for $111.
So I bet they're not together anymore. I don't feel like that's how a lot of happy relationships start.
Yeah, I'm just gonna throw out all your crap. But I mean, I loved it. I benefited from it. Yeah, the giant turtles, I guess. Like, yeah, they seem worse to us because we have some. We both have Mikey. We have the original ones. I have the giant Samurai Leo also, who's like weirdly a lot smaller than the other giant figures. That's kind of how the new giant ones. They're the size of the giant movie 3 turtles, kind of.
Yeah, I guess I've never seen the Samurai ones in real life either before.
They're rare. I found that at a comic shop. Yeah, it's not worth, I guess, getting that mad over the new ones because, again, I'm just not going to buy them. Like, I just don't care. But at the same time, it's just kind of aggravating because it's just like, once again, like, Playmates, what are you doing? Like, why are you cutting so many corners? Why are you being so lazy? This is like your only franchise you do anything with anymore. So like,
I feel like you're almost too rational of a collector. You know what I mean? Like, you make it sound so easy when so many of us just have the sickness. You know what I mean? And that's why these figures are moving, because people like me just have the sickness. And even I have self-control a little bit. Yeah. But like I said, like in Facebook groups, like these are the things that everybody is the most hyped on right now. These quarter scale figures, like, or not quarter scale figures, but these giant sized turtles. Like, I'd say even more so than the pizza tossers or the storage shell, those seem to be the ones that people are clamoring for the most right now. And they're honestly, and here's the other thing about this stuff. It's going to be plentiful. Like, I feel like this stuff is going to end up on clearance.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be overproduced, honestly, because it's going to other than Mikey's an exclusive and the pizza tossers are exclusive, but they're going to Target, Amazon, and I'm sure that's free reign for anybody else that wants to get on them too. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, every like mom and pop toy shop's going to have them and stuff like that too. So, yeah, I don't think it'll be that hard to get them. And again, like at Target, you're probably going to find them on clearance for like, $16 at some point or something. So
that's the other thing I was surprised that both Target and Walmart, they put out a lot of peg space for these, which was very surprising. My Walmart has, I think, 6 different pegs, and then a shelf for the storage shell turtles, and then another shelf for both Leo and Michelangelo, the giant size one. So I mean, for Walmart, that's a lot of shelf space that's taken up right now.
They must have had to have thrown out all the whole aisle of Lightyear figures that have just been sitting there for a year because no kid wants them.
Yeah.
It's still funny. Every time I go to a toy store, just like there's a whole aisle of just Lightyear toys.
So
like, dude,
much.
just get rid of them. Like Disney, cut your losses and just throw them out. Like,
Well, dude, I mean, that's one thing I'll never understand is the clearance system for stores because I don't understand how the G.I. Joe classified Snake Eyes movie figures are still on the shelves from almost 2 years ago at this point. Like,
yeah,
nobody's buying those. Like, you can't even sell those for half off. Like, I don't understand why they're still allowed to clog up peg space. Like, I don't understand the way Walmart and Target do things sometimes with their clearance.
yeah, I don't get it either because you have like on the topic of like Disney toys, like kids toys. Lightyear, they're so stubborn. They cleared so much space for Lightyear in every toy store, and that movie was a massive flop. So was the movie Raya and the Last Dragon, which came out like the year or two before it. But they made like 2 pegs for toys of that, and then they disappeared like immediately. So it's like I don't know why they responded to that flop well, but then they didn't respond. Maybe because Lightyear is a Toy Story property and Toy Story classically sells a lot of toys, maybe. I don't know. I've never collected those kinds of toys, so I don't know. Maybe that's why. Maybe they just overproduced the toys because like, oh, Buzz Lightyear, he's a hot selling toy. We're going to make a ton of Buzz Lightyear, and nobody wanted them. So.
Yeah, and I mean, again, I haven't even seen the movie, but I know it
Me neither.
definitely underperformed by a long shot. So,
Yeah.
and I'm sure they probably anticipated because I was assuming that allocation for shelf space they paid for way in advance. You know what I mean? So they probably are like, this movie's going to be a hit. These toys are going to keep going, and it just didn't happen. But they already had the shelf space, so
it kind of bums me when like how they prioritize what they're gonna overstock and what they're gonna understock sometimes because there's just certain stuff like there was the Loyal Subjects Beetlejuice, the animated series figures. They've still only put out Beetlejuice. I don't know when the hell the 2 Lydia Dietz ones are coming out. I want both of them, but she's just not showing up, and I don't know why, where she is. But the Beetlejuice one, I never even got it in a Walmart or anything. I had to find them in like a collector store because he was just nowhere. Beetlejuice is like a really popular franchise. Go to like a Spirit Halloween store or something, and it's like there's just walls of Beetlejuice. So it's like it's not like that's a franchise that doesn't sell. I just don't get why they didn't order like any of those for the stores, but then they ordered 500,000 Lightyear toys. So like, it's just weird. I don't know how they prioritize like what they order and what they don't order.
So with the collectible stuff, it's really weird because my Walmart, I've never seen a Loyal Subjects turtle there, and they have tons of Loyal Subject stuff there. So I don't know what's going on in that store. Like it makes no sense to me that I've never seen a single one, and I go there 4 times a week. So I would have definitely seen them if they were there. And the only place I ever saw that Beetlejuice was Books a Million. That's the only place I've ever seen him before. And that's honestly where I've seen all the Loyal Subjects turtles that I've ever seen is there pretty much. Other than Target when I got the ref and the 3D glasses and stuff like that.
Oh, okay. I don't even know what the hell Books a Million is.
Oh, it's like Barnes and Noble. It might be regional. I didn't know that. I thought it was a nationwide chain, but it's basically a Barnes and Noble.
No, we only have Barnes and Noble monopolized that shit by us. So we don't have anything but Barnes and Noble. I see the disguised turtles, the rapper turtles. I see those in Target by me all the time, but I've never seen any others. The only other place I've seen Loyal Subjects turtles figures, aside from like collector stores, is GameStop has them by me. That's where I just got Bebop from GameStop recently. They carry them a lot, so that's a weird spot to find them. But I never have seen them at Walmart. When I go to Walmart and look at the Loyal Subject section, it's really only Avatar: The Last Airbender toys.
That's all I really see. It's all anime properties and ones that I don't even really know, which means they have to be like pretty obscure, I would say. I mean, it's not like I'm super deep into anime and manga other than what I'm into, but yeah, I don't even recognize half the shit that's there.
Watch out online. If you call Avatar anime, you're going to get those people like, it was made in America, actually. So technically, no, but,
because I actually just talked about someone about that recently. I feel like that era of Nickelodeon with Avatar and even the 2012 TMNT at the show at the time, I feel like they really were pulling from a lot of anime during that area because I feel like that's kind of when like the anime boom really, really started to happen where it's like, okay, only super duper nerds aren't into this anymore. You know what I mean? So, because I feel like even in the 2000s, if you were into anime, it was still pretty frowned upon at that time. You know what I mean?
I remember when I was in high school, like 2002, 2003, 2004. I remember like anime was starting to blow up. It's like Toonami was getting big and everything,
Yep.
like on Cartoon Network, and Dragon Ball Z was huge. And then like they started getting like Gundam Wing and stuff like that, and Cowboy Bebop, and which is an awesome show. But yeah, it started becoming like I had friends who were like diehard anime fans, and they were getting really into it, and like that scene was getting bigger, but they were still like the nerd kids, like the outcast kids in school.
Yeah.
They were like the geeks, like, you know, anyone I knew was a geek. So it's like, but then, yeah, I think by like the late 2000s, anime started getting more mainstream and it started becoming like everybody agreed it was cool. Everyone and their mother had seen Akira, and like, it was just like, it became normal at that point. But there was already shows around like 2003, like Teen Titans was kind of pushing the anime stylization with like the way the characters would warp and stuff when they talk and all. But yeah, 2012 Turtles definitely did a lot of that, where the characters' faces would warp and stuff and all that kind of stuff.
Like the temple pulse.
Yeah,
and stuff like that.
the vein, the little sweat drop, and all, all those little weird things that they all just seem to do for some reason. But I guess the last thing we touch on before we get back into the movie discussion is, NECA's doing Holothon again soon. I'm not happy about that. I honestly, I didn't like Holothon. Holothon sucked. Like, it was like, I went through like hundreds of dollars during Holothon. Like, I know it's going to be. It's going to be Rex 1. It's going to be Mona Lisa and Dirk Savage. It's going to be Lotus Blossom and Chakanara. What the hell's his name? Like, Cabanara? I don't remember what the hell his name is.
Dude, okay, so he's the only character whose name I can never remember, no matter how many times I see that episode, no matter how many times I read it before I try to say it. It reminds me of capybara, but I know it's not that. That's a giant rodent, but it's something like that. I can never remember his damn name.
It's something like
Hakachara.
Hakachara. All right.
Something like that. I'm still probably off. There's somebody going nuts listening to this right now. I know they are.
I think it's Chakahari, actually.
Okay, I think we're getting closer.
We're getting closer. We're probably not. His name's probably John. We're like completely fucking off. John the Samurai Ghost. But yeah, like they've already said that those figures were on the water like a month ago. So it's like they probably already have them all. They probably already have had them for a bit, and they're just waiting to roll them out. I think Donnie as the Invisible Man is going to be part of it. I think probably Man Ray for the Archie line is going to be part of it. They did it last year. They put out like, Jesus, so like it was like thousands of dollars worth of turtle stuff alone, not counting the Gremlins and all the other stuff they did. So it's like, if you actually bought all of that and did all the pre-orders, including, you know, like Usagi, the Neutrinos, the Crooked Ninja Turtle gang, the Smash and Zack, if you pre-order the Party Wagon, the Secret of the Ooze Turtle, Secret of the Ooze Shredder, then got like the glow in the dark Muckman, you got the Mirage Fugitoid, you got they brought a lot of things back, like the Channel 6 News collection. Rat King and Vernon came back. They did Toka and Razar, who I never got from the Toon line. They did Robotic Bebop and Rocksteady, who I somehow found. Like it was like thousands of dollars worth of figures.
That was like the most expensive 2-month run probably ever in collecting for me.
It was horrible. It's like, I don't want you. I want like January, we get Rex 1. February, we get Mona Lisa and Dirk Savage. Like that's what I want. Like one or two a month, maybe. Like don't not release stuff for 7 months straight and then just pour everything you have on a shelf out at once. Like I hate to say it, but it's inconsiderate towards collectors. It's just like, oh, you nerds have money. You can just pick it up. You're going to buy this shit anyway, right? And it's like, dude, I don't want to sell a kidney just to get a Mona Lisa toy. I mean, I might, but I don't want to do that. So it's like, I don't know. Like I hate that format, that whole, because also a lot of that stuff, like Robotic Bebop and Rocksteady and Toka and Razar, they didn't hang around after a Holothon. If you didn't catch them during Holothon, they were gone. Like they're just not on shelves anymore. And same with the Glow in the Dark Mutagen Man and stuff, or Muckman. I'm sorry, not Mutagen Man.
So him, you could actually get online for quite some time. He still might be available online, honestly.
That's the
thing. If you haven't checked out Target's website lately, they have a lot of their stuff available now. Like you can get Vernon Rat King online. You can get a ton of sets online. I was very surprised to see what's still actually up on there. But okay, here's the best advice for Holothon and what I learned last year is that really just focus on the Target exclusive Toon stuff, because everything else is going to go to other retailers. Like that Donnie you mentioned is going to go to retailers. Any of that, the Mirage, or not the Mirage, the Archie stuff, that'll go to other retailers. Like, so I'm really only going to focus on trying to get as much of the Toon stuff as I can, and then later down the line I'll try to pick up everything else. I think the black and white Usagi is the one thing that's going there that I really, really, really want to.
I haven't even heard of that. I didn't even know they were doing that.
Oh yeah, so they did a run on Stan Sakai on his website, did a run of signed ones and stuff like that. He had like a ton of different price points and different, like you could get one with like an actual like the remark on it, like where he draw like a little drawing on it and stuff.
Cool. I thought you were gonna say you get one with an actual rabbit in it.
All right. Yeah, so the regular standard edition black and white Usagi is gonna be coming too, but like I said, that's gonna be my goal. Sorry guys, my cat's going nuts. So that's just gonna be my goal, is try to just get all the Toon figures I can get, and then I'll just hold off on anything else that I want, because that is the stuff that, like you said, once it's gone, it's gone. But the other thing that NECA has shown us is, other than I think it's the April in Bash or slash Foot Soldier, whatever one she came with, and the Casey and that other Foot Soldier, those are the only two sets at this point that they pretty much haven't re-released. So they have shown that even if it's a year later, they will rerun figures. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I, at this point, I don't think NECA really wants to leave money on the table. And I've said this before in other videos, like when things are going for double their retail price on the aftermarket, that doesn't do anything for the companies. You know what I mean? They see that and they're like, okay, if demand's this still high, we can probably do another run, and they're going to move if people are willing. This many people are willing to pay double retail value. And I think NECA's really picked up on that lately. And again, I feel like they're figuring out their demand levels a lot better as well. And they're at least meeting production, if not exceeding it on some figures.
I think the only one that is not coming back is we are not getting that April and Foot Soldier 2-pack, because they have announced they are redesigning April. They're making a new April. And I think that's good, because that first April was abysmal. She didn't have a neck. She was like a bobblehead.
Well, she just looks like a little kid, I feel like. Like, that's just the thing to me, is she doesn't look like, I mean, again, as far as cartoon characters go, April was like a tall glass of water, you know what I mean? Like, she was like big and
built.
Yeah, exactly. Like she wasn't a dainty chick, you know what I mean? So I feel like that's what I want, is just, I mean, and again, I don't need her to be like ridiculous porno version April either, you know what I mean? But like, she should at least look like an adult woman and not a 12-year-old child, I feel like.
I think that's honestly, that's one of the things I don't like. So anyone who watches my channel knows I've said like a bunch of times, growing up, I had a huge crush on Mona Lisa. I'm definitely going to buy a Mona Lisa figure. I've been asking for years, because, you know, childhood cartoon.
I was going to say, I feel like
always
you
gonna have
to. Don't tell your brother, though.
That's right. The thing is, after all these years of her being my most asked for character, I hate to say it, but from the pictures, her figure looks pretty shit. Like, it just seems like she has the same problems April had, like really big fat head, shoulders so scrawny that like they're not even as wide as her own head, and then just like pipe cleaner arms. And like, you know, Mona Lisa wasn't like plus size or anything, but she wasn't like scrawny either. Like she had some meat on her. Like,
oh yeah, I mean, she was like put together pretty well for sure. Like, and that I feel like is kind of the issue with that April too, is her shoulders are just very tiny compared to her head proportion as well. And like the neutrinos are like that, but that's kind of how they are designed. I feel like they did have big noggins for their body, it seems like.
They did. They were little Keebler elves, so it's like, who cares? And I know Mona Lisa was short. She was like as short as Raph, and the turtles are short. But for the figure, they made April like as short as the turtles. And the turtles were like eye level with her freaking boobs in the cartoon.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and that's again why I want like adult, tall woman April, and not little munchkin kid April.
I think because early on in the line, they weren't doing the sizes as well. Like now they're really good at getting the heights right. Yeah. But early on, Bebop and Rocksteady, they're not that much taller than like Casey Jones. And they don't have to be, because I mean, in the cartoon, everyone's so amorphous. There's shots where Bebop and Rocksteady are shorter than the turturs.
Yeah, they really got out of control with their size towards the end. But when I think of them, I think of that first season where I can't remember if it's Bebop or Rocksteady, literally palms two of the turtles by their tails and picks them up. You know what I mean? Like, that's how I envision those guys.
Yeah, I mean, that's how the vintage toys were. They were big dudes, and like the turtles were shorter than them. And in the original one, the NECA figures, they weren't that big at first. And immediately then they made Leatherhead, and Leatherhead was humongous. Casey Jones, I think they don't want April to be as tall as Casey because they want Casey to be bigger. Yep. But the thing is, they don't want Casey to be as big as the mutants. So they have this weird balance there with the human characters of like, well, April has to be shorter than Casey, and Casey has to be shorter than the mutants. So now April's just like 4 feet tall, and it's just weird. It's like she has to be taller than the Turtles. Like that's just the way it has always been. So, well, unless it's the Michael Bay ones where like they're like 5 feet taller than her, but but yeah, like it just seems weird. I'm hoping the new April will be, you know, she doesn't have to be as tall as Casey, but maybe like not that much shorter than him. Like I know it's a little weird. You think Casey should be taller than April, but I mean the Super 7 ones are pretty good. Like he's taller than her, but he's not that much taller than her. So like we said, like Irma's considerably shorter than April, and she's still taller than the Turtles. So
right.
April's a tall girl. She's built, you know?
Yeah, exactly. I always pictured her about 6 foot tall. Like you said, I would rather have her be closer to Casey's height than the Turtles' height. You know what I mean? I would rather still have her be on the taller end. Because again, I mean, I feel like she was about the same height as like Vern and stuff like that, wasn't she?
Yeah. I think so. Vernon was a tall dude, so maybe Vernon might have been like slightly taller. I don't know. Like Vern was the shortest out of the bunch, definitely. But she was tall. Yeah, she was a tall character, and I don't get the shoulders. I still don't get like she has like 10-year-old girl shoulders, and it's just like. Not only should she have normal woman shoulders, but she also had that big baggy jumpsuit with the sleeves rolled up. So her shoulders should look even bigger, actually. So it's like, it's just so weird. She's this little stick figure with a big head, like in the NECA figure. And Mona Lisa's kind of looking like the same thing. And it's like, I don't know. I just don't like how tiny and scrawny those figures are. The female figures are just so scrawny and twiggy. I just really wish they'd make them better, but.
I feel like that's kind of a syndrome with a lot of lines. Like I feel like the female characters are always the hardest to get right, and it just seems like they do just get the least amount of attention to, you know what I mean? And for the record, I again, it's not like April's the most exciting designed character, especially. I mean, could you imagine like you're looking over some guy sculpted Ground Chuck and you got April, you know what I mean? Like exactly. I can understand like the lack of motivation. I feel like that's exactly what it was with the Horsemen, you know what I mean? Like they're doing all these awesome sculpts and Corn Boy's just like, fuck, I gotta do April. Like
yeah. It's not, she's not the most fun one. Like you gotta make her as good as she can be.
Yeah.
And I feel like if you do a good job of making April, you know, fun and appealing, people will like her. Everyone loved her in Shredder's Revenge because they just made her fun and goofy and they embraced her design and everything. So I will say Lotus Blossom looks pretty good. From what I've seen. She looks like the best female figure in the line so far, I think. She looks, which is weird because I wanted her, but at the same time, I always thought she had kind of a boring design in the cartoon, like a little lackluster. But she ended up being the best looking female figure in this line. So anyway, I think it's time to get back to the movies.
Picking up kind of where we left off last time, we were talking about the first movie. And I think one of the things I was talking about is how when I went back and read the Mirage comics, how mind blowing it was that that's the source material that they drew from, because I had no clue until my early 30s, the first time I read Mirage. Crazy to see how they picked what they picked to put in and just how well it turned out. So if you've never read the Mirage books, the overarching arc of the movie is essentially the first comic. Like it pretty much it's the first comic is a very undetailed story of the first movie. All the rest of the books 1 through 20, with the exceptions of there's a lot of like one-off random stories and stuff like that. That's kind of what makes up the scenes of the movies, is like the scene where Raph kind of goes off on his own, fights Casey and stuff like that. That's the Raph micro series, the one shot, the Raphael one shot. Like that's based off of that whole comic, is that whole scene. And just seeing how all that stuff came to be, like, I don't know, it like I said, it just felt like my whole life kind of coming full circle at that moment, figuring out that that's where it all came from.
Yeah, that was like even more like we were saying in the 87 cartoon discussion, that a lot of people don't realize that the Mirage comics were, even though they took themselves very seriously, they were a parody of superhero comics. further proving that is when they did those one-off issues, they'd be like #1 in a 1-issue miniseries and stuff. Like they're making fun of how complicated like comic books got.
Right.
But yeah, because Raph was the where he meets Casey. That's directly lifted from that one-off, and then the Leo one like that, the #1 in a 1-issue miniseries. That's what they turned into Raph getting jumped by all the foot soldiers and, crashing through April's apartment and everything. So it's weird because the beginning of the first issue is essentially in the movie, and the end of the first issue is essentially at the end of the movie. But in between, there's a bunch of stuff that happens later in the comics crammed into that story, kind of to make like the ultimate Turtles vintage story, the ultimate like Mirage story, basically. So
that's kind of a good way to put it. That's exactly what that first movie is like, outside, because that's the first 20 issues are kind of what Eastman and Laird were most involved in, and then after that they kind of were just more so overseeing it, and a lot of other people were writing the book and drawing the book and stuff like that. And they came back for that last arc, the City at War arc from 50 to 61 or 62. I can't remember exactly how many issues are in it. I think 61. Yeah. But yeah, that's kind of what the movie is like Mirage's or Eastman and Laird's greatest hits. And that's why it surprised me that they said it still didn't really turn out the way they wanted it to. And I understand that, because I mean, it's their work, you know what I mean? They probably had a very specific vision for it. But I said this in the last episode, I think it's the best comic book adaptation probably ever. Like it, other than those little changes, like you said, like so the scene he was talking about, where Raph's up on the roof training and all the foot soldiers jump him and throw him in the throw him through the roof, and he sits in the bathtub all the time when they're at the farm and stuff like that. Like that was Leonardo that it happened to in the comics. So there was little changes to it and stuff like that, but it still felt like exactly the same. It was just a different turtle.
I think it worked better to turn it into Raph in the movie, because it made more sense, since Raph was so angsty, why he would go out on his own, angry and get into trouble. And then it sets up the whole story of like, do we see how much Leo actually cares about Raph and everything when he's unconscious? Because the last thing, he's afraid Raph might be dead at that point, and he's thinking like, the last thing I ever said to him was I told him that no one needs him, like who needs him, get out of here and stuff. So it's like you can tell like how like Leo just feels terrible that like he thinks his brother is going to die, thinking he hates him or something. So I think it worked better to turn that into Raph than leave it as Leo in the movie. Also, I don't think they wanted the leader to be out of commission for a portion of the movie, probably too. But
we touched on this before too. Like this is where the movie could do a lot more development than the comics could. So 20 issues of comics that are 40 pages a pop, you know what I mean? That's a lot of storytelling, but it still just doesn't do what a 90-minute movie can do. What you can convey in that is just so much more than what you could do with the comics. And like you said, it fit that version better. Like I don't know how it would have worked if it was the other way around in that one. That scene does have a lot of heart, you know what I mean? Like you feel good when he wakes up, and like I don't know, you feel that relief that Leonardo feels in that scene.
The whole time they're at the farmhouse, which in the comics it was Casey's farmhouse, but they changed it to April's, which makes more sense. Like I don't think Casey's the kind of guy to be owning a lot of real estate, this like psychopath on the streets beating up criminals. I don't think he's like he owns all kinds of real estate. That whole scene when those scenes where they're on the farm, everyone kind of, even like the color scheme is kind of like it's always at sunset, and it's kind of like we almost feel like everyone's tired and we're tired with them. Like we went through everything they went through with them, and like we feel like when April's like talking about going over, like reflecting on everything that's happened, and she's doing the drawings, sketches, and all. It's like we feel like, oh yeah, man, so much has happened, and this is like a little bit of downtime before like the crazy part of the movie happens and stuff. So it's like I really like the farmhouse parts. I feel like that has some of the most like genuine emotion of the movie, where it's like, I know people will joke, it's like, okay, it was a toy commercial movie for kids, but it's like, no, I think it's still an effectively emotional moment in the movie. I think like like Leo waiting for Raph, and then Raph finally coming to out of his coma, and Mikey being so bitter, and them having the talk with Splinter at the fire and everything. Like I think there's a lot of genuine emotion there. Even Casey and April, getting all cutesy with each other is kind of heartwarming too, but like in their own weird way. But Yeah, it's nice. It's like all these people have been like through a horrible thing together, and they're just trying to pick up the pieces and like be a family. And it's I don't know, I think it's really heartwarming.
A lot of movies tend to lose me between the second and third act. Like I feel
Yeah,
like because when you follow the hero's journey or whatever, like that's where the falling action usually is. And even that chunk of the movie, like you said, it's one of the most memorable chunks of the whole movie, and it's when they're most away from the status quo because
yeah,
they do a lot of character development in that one. You know what I mean? And it kind of helps that April speeds it up with the narration and stuff like that. And again, that's another issue of the comic. That one issue is just her telling
yeah,
all those stories, drawing the turtles and stuff like that. Thing that I think sets up what you just said is that right before that is probably one of the most intense scenes in the movie. And I don't know if I've already called something else my favorite scene or the best scene in the movie. I think I might have called the fight with Shredder, which I mean, the climax is great, but like
yeah,
the scene when they're in April's second time around the junk shop or whatever,
yeah.
in Tatsu and the foot soldiers show up. That is, I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it right now. When that piano kicks in, like, oh my God, man, like the fire starts, Casey shows up. Like, I get goosebumps every time I watch that scene. I'm covered in goosebumps right now just talking about it. Like, it's such a good scene in the movie. And that really does, like, because then fire is always stressful in general, you know what I mean? But like you just feel like, oh my God, they're gonna burn alive here. Like they're not gonna get out. And I mean, as kids, you think that, as adults, they're gonna, like the story goes on. And even just when they're driving away, when April's looking out that back window, just watching it burn, like I mean, it is like I said, for a movie that was made to be a silly kids movie, like it has a lot of heart and a lot of feel in it.
It does, yeah. Yeah, that's honest. That's genuinely like that's a big moment because you put yourself in April's shoes and you think like, okay, there's a no going back now. Like I don't have a normal life anymore. Like this, like I'm committed to this. And yeah, and it's already bad enough that like, all right, you have ninja problems. Now you have the whole building's falling apart problems. Now you have fire problems. Now you got called and got told you're fired. Like it's just like how much can go
with
wrong?
The answering machine hanging and tingling. Yeah.
Like how much could go wrong in 5 minutes? It's like and Raph's in a coma. It's like wow, everything just went from great to zero in like a few seconds. I guess not great. Splinter was already captured, but
Hey, something I never thought about. How did they get Raph out of there?
how do they get? Did someone drag him out?
Because they crawl through that crawl
Yeah.
space trap door. You know what I mean? Like, do they just shove him through and just push him along?
know.
I've never really thought about that before.
They just pop him in his shell and roll him out. Like,
Oh man,
I have no idea. That's a good question. I wonder, do they show like one of them carrying him or something? I don't remember.
I can't think of it at all. Like, I feel like they're just laying there when Tatsu and Shredder or Tatsu and the foot soldiers show up, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Because then Casey Jones stays behind because Leo's like, you come in.
He's the last one out, yeah, because he goes, I'll cover you up, but then he leaves 2 seconds later right behind him too. So
yeah, which is kind of funny. It's like, well, you have 3 guys here who have literal armor on their bodies, and the human is covering them. The human with a baseball bat is covering
also
them.
there's 80 foot soldiers in there too, and just one Casey. Like, how did they not just jump him? It makes no sense.
They did a great job of establishing how badass Casey was in that scene. Because it's like, wow, this one dude with sports equipment can take out this whole army of ninjas. So it's like they really established, like, okay, Casey's badass. Like Casey's on par with the turtles. Like, yeah, I don't know. Everything about that movie was just like I said, it's so easy to just look at it now and be like, oh, it was a cheesy, pizza commercial and toy commercial and stuff for kids. But like, no, you can tell a lot of love went into that. I think that's one of the things I like is I'm not saying I don't want to disrespect the Mirage comics because they're amazing and we wouldn't even have this, this movie without the Mirage comics. But I do think they do add more personality and more emotion to all those situations than was even in the Mirage comics. Because like I've said, the first issue, it's a good issue, but it's so like just breakneck pace. And there's really not a lot of character. It's essentially 4 Batmans versus Ra's al Ghul is like basically what that first issue is. It's like they all talk like Batman and he's just Shredder's just an evil ninja. They don't have as much personality as they do in the movie. The movie, you care for them a lot more than you do in the comics, I think. Because, by the time you get to the one where Leo gets beat up and thrown into April's apartment. You definitely care about them more. I think by that point in the comics, they establish them more as like people. In those early issues, the Turtles are just like, we're just four Batmen. Like,
well, the thing about that is, I mean, they never thought there was going to be an issue number 2. You know what I mean? They thought they were going to make these 3,000 comics and they were going to have some fun and that was going to be it. Like they did not see what was happening. So it's not like they even like, were like, okay, we got this issue thought out. This is what's going to happen next. It was probably like, all right, we get to do one more issue. What are we going to do? All right. And then once they figured out like, okay, this isn't a flash in the pan. You know what I mean? We just sold 100,000 copies on issue 8 or whatever it was. Like, let's see what we can really do with this. And like again, I know we keep retouching on things we touched before, but I think it's important. Like it was the amalgamation of what made the cartoon great and what made the comic great coming together to make the movie, again, what I think is the best thing ever for Turtles, because they do just need that character development. Like that's the most important part of the movie that, like you said, is superior to the comics. Is we get the individual personalities, even though they're not the same as the cartoon, they are slightly different. But that's what makes you care about these characters, is like you have to feel like you know them. Like that's why, again, in the first issue of the comic, there isn't time to get to know them, to get to care about them. It's just a fun action-packed romp from start to finish, and that's it. But again, this movie, it was a catalyst in what made the Turtles so big, because it made, again, we call it a silly kids movie, but it got older people into it too. Like you don't just become the best selling indie movie of all time by being a kids movie.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there was a lot of crap kids movies just made to market toys and food products back then. There's Mac and Me and all that garbage. It's like the Turtles movie was clearly a huge step above all of that. And like you said, that's because it had appeal for teenage audiences and even adults. Like adults, I know adults being into kids franchises was much more frowned upon back then than it is now. I think like if an adult was a Turtles fan back then, they kept it secret. They didn't tell people about it. And they were probably seen as like a weird nerd or something. Like adults weren't supposed to like cartoons and stuff back then. The Simpsons kind of came out the year before and started to change that. For the most part, it was like adults and cartoons do not go together. Whereas now, like every adult freaking loves cartoons. Adults probably buy more toys than kids do. So it's like, it's changed a lot since then. But yeah, definitely some older audiences were getting into them because those movies did gangbusters. Well, at least the first one did gangbusters. Second one did gangbusters also. But yeah, highest grossing indie film of all time at that time. It beat Halloween. Like it beat like a lot of these huge movies that were previously the highest grossing indie films. So it definitely had to have a larger audience than, kids going there after Burger King. Like it had to have been more people. Because again, kids tickets were cheaper. So kids movies historically always have to get more sales to make as much as the adult movies, because kids tickets are cheaper. So you look at like late 80s movies, like I think the two biggest, most successful animated movies from when I was in the 80s were The Land Before Time and The Little Mermaid. Those were probably the two biggest ones. If you look on the highest grossing list of animated films of all time, they're like Little Mermaid's like after like it's like 140th like highest grossing movie. It's so low on the list. And then Land Before Time is like 400 or something. And it's like Land Before Time was like massive when I was a kid. It was everywhere. But it just shows that like not only how much inflation has changed stuff, but even by the mid 90s, inflation made ticket prices so much higher. But also just that like kids tickets were so much cheaper. So like a kids movie had to get a lot more sales than an adult movie to make money back then. And Turtles made a lot of freaking money. So I guess we got to just touch on one thing, because it's one of the only times I can think of them actually doing it this way. But the foot soldiers being kids, they're not robots. They're not like, top of the line assassins, brought over on boat from Japan or anything. They're just reckless youths who Shredder just scoops up, takes advantage of their angst and everything. It's just like, hey, I'll be like a cool father to you. I'll teach you how to kill people with ninja stars and steal TVs and do all kinds of crazy shit. that creates a much more interesting, as an interesting dynamic we've never really had with the foot soldiers before, where it humanizes them, because usually the foot soldiers aren't humanized. They're just, whether they're humans or they're robots, they're just bad guys. So it's weird that we got sympathetic foot soldiers in a way, because you can think like, what if that was my son? Like, what if my son fell in with this crowd or something? Like, that would be devastating. And you got Tatsu beating the crap out of them, and like there's well, what is that? Oh, the smoking cigarettes. What's the line? Like, regular or menthol?
Regular menthol.
I always found it funny that they were playing Narc in that scene. It's like you're
the
teaching
game,
kids,
right?
Yeah, they're teaching kids to be criminals, but then you're playing the just say no game. That's like anti-drugs. It's so weird. I don't know if like Barbara Bush was like, you got to have this game cabinet in this movie or something.
Right. But so the thing that makes that dynamic kind of even more funny. So like the turtles are teenagers in that movie, so they're at least fighting other teenagers, but Casey Jones is literally just beating the shit out of minors. You know what I mean?
I never thought of that. You're right.
Just beating the shit out of kids.
Yeah, he's no better than Tatsu, really. I didn't think about that. Holy crap. Yeah, because I mean, it helps that they had the character Danny. So like it really helps us connect with like, oh wow, this is like really a thing that's happening. Like I think making one of them an actual main character helps, because even if you showed them as teenagers, they still just, there's no connection. You still just think of like, oh, they're just these over the top MTV stereotypes. But like showing that Danny is falling in with this, that like April's boss's son could end up in the Foot Clan, kind of like it. I don't want to say like it makes it more realistic, because like I don't think this would ever actually happen, but it's like it's a little creepy.
It don't think your kids can become foot soldiers.
Yeah, but it brings up tones of like your kid could get in a gang or something. So it's like I guess like it just makes it a bit more personal. I think it's a bit more relatable for the parents watching it. That's like, oh, this is a bad guy. He like, imagine if he was corrupting my kid. Like, imagine if my kid got involved in some criminal organization underground or something and manipulated like his teenage mind, told him all the things he wanted to hear to, you know, get him to do terrible things. So I just think I don't have too much to really say about it. I just always thought that was interesting, because it's the only time we've ever seen that done with the foot soldiers, but it's also the only time we've ever seen the foot soldiers as characters, basically. Because aside from that, they're just foot soldiers. They're just, you know, things there for the turtles to beat the crap out of. So
I feel like the Danny thing is a good point. Like he was definitely like supposed to be like your avatar kind of in the movie, especially for like, I feel like older kids, you know what I mean? Because they probably could relate to that. Because I mean, all teenagers hate their parents, you know what I mean? They all want to be rebellious and go off. And like I think that's why like the interaction between him and Splinter is so important, because like he kind of, you don't ever want to listen to your parents, you know what I mean? But like there's other older, wiser people like coaches or whoever that you just kind of look at differently and you take advice from differently, because they're not your parents. And I feel like that, again, that's just where that heart kind of comes back into play. And I mean, even with Casey showing up and knocking Tatsu with the golf club, like, and then, you know, family, is this your family? Is that your family down there? Like, again, like, especially like, and again, I can't really speak for Gen X because I'm not Gen X, but I mean, that's kind of what that generation was kind of known for, was being like very rebellious and like anti-authority and alternative. So again, there's just a lot more thinking into that movie than you would think at first glance. You know what I mean?
Yeah, even I mean that scene where he's talking to Splinter is another like very emotional scene, I think. And especially they add the extra gut punch of him saying all fathers care about their sons, and then it goes straight to the turtles. You're like, oh, he's talking about the turtles. Like he's like, because back then, I know that's popular now. Like in the 2012 cartoon, they did it a lot, and in the Michael Bay movies, they did a lot, where the turtles call Splinter father. They call him dad. They treat him like he's part of their family. But back then, he was usually just sensei. He wasn't really regarded as like a dad for them. Like he was a father figure, but they didn't like formally like identify as a family. Whereas in the movie, they kind of like started that, where, you know, he says right there, all fathers care about their sons. And I think that's like,
and they don't even, because they still refer to him as Splinter in the movie too. So like, it is kind of like that. He's not really their father, but spiritually, like he is, you know what I mean? Like, again, he raised them, he took care of them. And yes, he's their sensei, and that is their ultimate relationship, but he is their father. Like, it's just kind Got goosebumps just thinking about it, man.
It's really
beautiful
sweet.
story. But we can move on to one that's not quite as heartwarming, starting with Secret of the Ooze here, and it only goes downhill from there. So not a lot of heart in this movie, but it's a lot of fun. And I don't care what anybody says. Like, you can try to be like you're fucking Billy Badass and it's not that great of a movie or whatever, but everybody our age liked this movie when it was out, man. It was so much fun, right from the intro scene to fucking Vanilla Ice. Like, it's just nonstop fun.
It's pretty much everything that kids to teenagers thought was cool in the early 90s, like in 1991. Like that's exactly, like, if you just wanted to show somebody like, oh, what were kids into in 1991, you just watch this movie, just watch the whole thing. You got Vanilla Ice, even just like at one point when he's making the little the professor's making the little like the little formula, he's using a glass with Bart Simpson
on it, right?
Like, it's just
I immediately noticed that. I'm like, oh, the turtles like Simpsons too. They have a Simpsons glass. They're just like me.
Yeah. And then Mikey, I remember as a kid, they're going into like the lab, and Mike's like, oh wow, this place is like a video game. I remember as a kid, I'm like, oh, he plays video games also. He mentioned them, because back then nobody mentioned like Nintendo and stuff. It was like just something that kids did that parents hated. And like hearing Mike like on a major motion picture mention video games, like now, like, you know, the aisle of Mario toys in every store, but back then that like blew my mind to hear him mention, you know, video games, and then see him have a Bart Simpson glass, and then Vanilla Ice. Like, it was everything everyone loved at that time. It was the movie we needed at that time. It might not look like a good entry in the series to people now, but at that time, that was like the coolest freaking movie that a kid could get. Like, that was exactly what we wanted.
It was, because like I said, once that one came out, it was my favorite Turtles movie back then. Clearly, the first one's back to being my favorite far and away now, but it was. That's the one. I mean, I burnt that thing out, man. I would watch it over and over and over. And I feel like the first movie, like, if you looked at the Turtles, if you didn't know it was called Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, you wouldn't really know they're teenagers. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, they could easily be acting like people in their early 20s, if not older, by the way they act. But in this one, I feel like they feel a little bit more teen, a little bit more immature. Like, when Raph's off by himself in the first one, I mean, like, he just seems like a 35-year-old New Yorker. You know what I mean? Like, but in this one, they're a little bit more immature. Like, they're just a little bit more fun and goofy. And again, as a kid, like, that is more so what I wanted at the time, because I was more about the fun. Like, again, even the first movie as a kid, like, it made me feel things as a child. You know what I mean? I felt that one was just way more hardcore. Like, the Shredder was scary in that one. Like, when treading back to what we were just talking about with Danny, like, when he comes up to him, when he like pulls the picture out of his pocket, like, I'm pissing my pants in that moment. You know what I mean? In this one, he just is kind of a little bit more of a clown. Like, even when he's at his most serious, like when he first shows up, our challenge, like, he's a little intimidating there and stuff like that. But I mean, I don't know. He just doesn't even have like the same force that he did in the first one. Like, everything is, the vibe is just totally toned down all around in this movie. And I think that's why it was more the one that I wanted to watch all the time, because it was just easier to watch. And that's still how I feel about it now. That's why it's a good background movie, because I don't have to be fully invested, to where the first one like sucks me in because I get like into the story.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. I think there was a big focus in the second movie to, you know, downplay it. Don't make it as scary. Don't make it as emotional. Because Shredder, you know, they do the whole babies, like all that stuff. Like, they make him goofier in the movie. And even when he does get scarier, Super Shredder, they like clean that up real quick, like, get it out of here.
Right.
Razar and Toka, they could have been freaking terrifying. Like, I remember my older brother said he had a nightmare where they were eating him like the night after he saw the movie.
Okay, so the one part about that movie that is kind of scary, and it always scared me as a kid, is when they do get let loose in the city and they're just tearing it up. And because, I mean, I don't know why that, like, I was just afraid that was going to happen to me one day. I was afraid I was just going to be walking around. There was going to be some mutants, and I was just going to be trapped in my car, and they were going to come for me. So that part did scare me a little bit as a kid. That's the only time I saw those guys really as intimidating.
The part that scared me, actually, because it broke the mood, was they're eating the donuts and then Razar just crumbles the donut and reveals the chip right away and looks at them. That was like, as a kid, I'm like, oh shit.
Okay,
Like,
so that's probably like the best you get out of their animatronic faces, probably. Like,
yeah,
he does just look like in that moment, like, you just fucked up, turtle. You know what I mean? Like,
you die now. Yeah.
yeah. So again, maybe those guys, maybe they are a little bit better villains than I give them credit for. I don't know. They guess the more I think about it, they are a little bit better. They're not just burpers.
Yeah. I think that they made them babies because they were like, these suits are terrifying. If we just make them like scary monsters and that's it, this movie's going to be just as like, you know, dark and creepy as the first one. So like, I think they were, because I have a theory. So it seems like they actually were originally going to make this more of the Mirage stuff they didn't cover in the first issue, the first movie. But at some point, New Line or someone like some higher up like just had to say like, no, we got to make this more like fun and kid friendly and just hip and cool and funny and stuff, because the professor had to be Baxter Stockman at some point in the script early on. Like he had to be.
So he was actually supposed to be an Utram.
Oh shit! Really?
I heard they actually filmed a scene where he opens up his coat and there's a little freaking Utram inside him.
Oh my god! I want to see that scene.
Yeah, I heard that's originally what that was the plan for him.
Oh my god, that would have been wild. Okay, so that changed because I feel like look wise, he looks just like Baxter from the cartoon. Like obviously not comic Baxter, he's not black, but the cartoon Baxter, he looks almost just like him. Like white lab coat, bow tie, glasses, messy hair. Yeah, if he was an Utram, that would have been crazy.
I think they originally, like, I'm pretty sure they filmed this to where they could cut it a lot of different ways, and I think that's one route they were thinking about going. But like you said, I bet when Toka and Razar were designed, they probably were supposed to be like super scary villains and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then once they started getting the feedback, and they're like, okay, the first movie, parents thought it was too violent, parents thought it was too scary, they thought it was too much, I mean, weapons and stuff like that. And that's why all that stuff got cut out. So that would make a lot of sense to why they're just like, okay, we'll make them babies, and then they're not quite as scary anymore.
And their voices, Toka's voice just always makes me laugh. Like he just sounds ridiculous. Like I think his eyebrows are real goofy. Like the way the expressions he makes are like funny sometimes, like almost cute in a weird way. They definitely like toned them down a lot. But talking about Toka and Razar, you can't talk about this movie without talking about the elephant in the room, or I guess the rhinoceros and the warthog in the room. There's been so many quote unquote definitive explanations as to why it's Razar and Toka and not Bebop and Rocksteady. And everyone claims to be the definitive one, even though they contradict each other. So some people have to be wrong. First, the common thing was it was a licensing thing. The Fred Wolf cartoon owned them, or Playmates owned them, or whatever, and they didn't want to give them to the movie. The second one is that Eastman and Laird didn't like Bebop and Rocksteady and didn't want them going towards the cartoon. They wanted them to stay more close to like the Mirage comics or something that would happen in the Mirage comics. My theory was always that Bebop and Rocksteady just weren't going to work. Like they would have been too expensive to make these crazy long rhinoceros and warthog heads actually emote and talk, and like, because Razar and Toka talk, but not really. They're just like mama and stuff. Like they don't they don't really like say sentences and stuff. Or like Bebop and Rocksteady would have to actually be like characters who can like emote and like respond to each other and crack jokes and stuff. So it's like I think they thought we aren't there with Bebop and Rocksteady, which again, we talked about it last week, but watching Jim Henson's Dinosaurs, it's like, actually you were there, but regardless, that's what I always thought, is that they just couldn't do Bebop and Rocksteady. So they're like, let's just make characters who are just mindless monsters. Because if we turn Bebop and Rocksteady into mindless monsters, fans of the cartoon will be mad because they'll be like, those aren't the characters we love. So that's always been my theory. Maybe it's a little bit of all three, but it's just, I don't know exactly what the reason is. It might have just been that New Line thought Bebop and Rocksteady were stupid. I don't know, like, but it just seems like there's so many conflicting like explanations as to why Bebop and Rocksteady aren't in there. Because all of us kids wanted Bebop and Rocksteady at the time.
So I've heard both those versions, and both of them would make sense to me, you know what I mean? Because like, yeah, there's no characters in the movie that aren't original characters or from the Mirage comics up to that point. There is nothing that was just created for the Fred Wolf cartoon that got put into that movie. So that would make sense. And then also, I do know Eastman and Laird were on record saying they did not like Bebop and Rocksteady, that they thought they were goofy. They thought, because again, that's why they had problems with the cartoon in general and stuff like that. And they didn't want that much of an influence on the movie because they were still really pushing the comic at the time, but the cartoon was just taking off. And I mean, that's what was putting dinner on the table for them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, they were just making money hand over fist. And I'm pretty sure they were involved, not to the same degree as they were in the first one. They still had input on it. And I know by the third one, they just pretty much washed their hands of it and didn't really have anything to do with it at that point. So I really don't know which version makes the most sense to me, because it all does. And again, what you said too, just not being able to get those suits and stuff like that to work the way they wanted to. And because like, okay, so Bebop and Rocksteady, like, they're wearing a lot of clothes and have a lot of gear and stuff like that too. So even just like outfitting those along with everything you would need to do to be able to get them to move with those clothes on, to where Toka and Razar, Toka's essentially naked and Razar has, I mean, just very loose hanging armor on him and stuff like that. So
loincloth.
I bet it would be a lot of, I could see it being kind of a combination, or not even a combination, but any of those three versions would make sense to me.
You know what I got to think though, which is weird, is just like, if you got like really buff dudes, just like wrestlers or something, from the waist down, they didn't have to be wearing any suit. They could just be wearing pants and boots, because Bebop and Rocksteady just wear pants and boots. So like, they're completely covered down there. I almost wonder, like, Bebop, you could have just gotten like a big ass guy, put an animatronic warthog head on him and like blended it into the body a bit, and then just did minimal like makeup and stuff on the body to make him look like a warthog. Like, they might not have even had to have gone for like fully blown animatronic suits. Actually, for Rocksteady, maybe, I don't know, but
well, because I feel like to put him in proportion with the Turtles, because the Turtles were short, but they were still pretty beefy. I mean, you know what I mean? Because there was a human inside there, and I mean, I'm sure those suits were tight, but I mean, the Turtles were pretty piped out in those movies.
Yeah, I mean, they were short guys inside. Ernie Reyes Jr., who plays Kino,
he ain't tall.
He was one of the Turtles in the first movie, so it's like, he's a small guy. Especially back then, he was like, what the hell was he, like 15 or something back then? Like, they're probably violating some child labor laws putting him in that suit. But I guess you might need an animatronic, because you would want Bebop and Rocksteady to be big, like big dudes. So yeah, I don't know. Again though, dinosaurs, they were all big. You know, they had human caveman characters on the show because they were like the animals, and the dinosaurs were like the people. And you would see those suits were so much bigger than the people. So I think like they could have done Bebop and Rocksteady. I don't know. Maybe it is just a case of like Eastman and Laird said no or something. Or I think Kevin Eastman's come around to Bebop and Rocksteady. I think he likes them now.
I mean, he's kind of come full circle on everything, though. You know what I mean? Like, for a while, he really because again, he sold his share of Turtles. He pretty much had his hands washed of Turtles. And again, once I feel like he realized it was just something that was never going to go away, like it was just lifelong fandoms, like now he leans into it as hard as possible. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I get that, because like, so if you've ever seen like any of like the biography stuff on those guys, like they're 10 years apart in age. They're very different ages. You know what I mean? And Peter Laird was like established. He was married. Like he was already settled down, where Eastman, like, he was a young artist. You know what I mean? He was probably just wanted to live that life that a lot of dudes want to live in their mid-20s, where they're just partying and having a good time. And again, as an artist, I'm sure he didn't want to feel like just stifled by being a Turtles creator either. You know what I mean? I'm sure he wanted to try new things, as most artists do. You know what I mean? A lot of artists do get bored of doing the same thing. Speaking from somebody who's not artistic at all, I'm just assuming that's how you guys feel.
No, we do. I mean, I haven't even finished my game, and I'm so bored of animating. So animating the same kinds of characters over and over again. But yeah.
And again, I mean, it's the same thing with me. Like, I mean, I've always loved Turtles, but I mean, in my mid-20s, like, I was a casual fan, essentially. You know what I mean? Like, I still love Turtles. I still had Turtle paraphernalia in my room. My cardboard cutouts have been in every room or every apartment I've ever had in my life. But like, I wasn't diehard about it in my 20s. It wasn't until I got in my 30s and I kind of just really fell back in love with them. So I get that. And again, I understand that they didn't really like the direction the movies and stuff like that were going. And that's probably a good way to segue into the third movie is
Yeah.
how no one really liked the direction of that movie. But like I said, it's another one that I think is just exactly. I think it's fun. Like I don't find it nearly as fun as Secret of the Ooze. Not even in the ballpark. It is by far and away the third best of the original trilogy. Like I don't think there's anybody that would argue it outside the 3 spot ever. But it's still just it's fun and it's silly and it's a movie that I still like to put on in the background. Like I mean, the storyline is just bananas. You know what I mean? Like it's just so far removed from what they were doing in the first 2 movies. And I don't know. I feel like they could have just kept it a little bit more in the status quo, but at the same time, I kind of like some of the stuff that happens in feudal Japan. Like, I feel like it does make for some fun storytelling, like you said, with the relationships between the characters in that world and stuff like that. Like, that is some of the best stuff from the movie.
Yeah, I guess I think the human element of it is at its best, but that's the problem. Is I think I look at that movie, I'm like, this works. This works as a kid's action movie comedy, but it doesn't need Ninja Turtles to be a good kids action comedy movie. The Ninja Turtles feel like they were just plucked out of one movie and put in this one. And I said that in my video review for it as well, that people say this all the time now about movies that like, oh, it probably was just a script they had laying around and they slapped an IP on it and made it eventually. But I really think this movie was a generic like script they had laying around, just like something like a kid in King Arthur's court or something, where it's like, oh, some hip, cool 90s kid or teenager, or like a group of them travel back in time and they have to bring the radicalness of the 90s to the past to save them from these lamos and stuff. And it's like, that's what the movie feels like. Like I could picture just like Jonathan Taylor Thomas or something being the main character and like not the Turtles. And it just feels like the Turtles were just plucked in there because they're like, Turtles is big. We had one 2 years back to back, and now we didn't have one. We need a Turtles movie. Quick, just grab the closest script. This one's about Japan. They're ninjas, sure, whatever. And they just threw them in it, and this is what we got. And it just seems that they didn't change that much about the original script. They just put the Turtles in and made the characters called the monsters, and that was it. And it's like, aside from that, it doesn't feel like it needs to be a Ninja Turtle movie. And so little of the continuity of the last movies is mentioned in the movie or like acknowledged or anything. It just seems like you got 4 Michelangelos now, basically. And actually, Michelangelo is the only one being depressed in the movie, and everyone else is like Michelangelo. Like even Leo, he doesn't really do any like noble leader things. He's just kind of another goofball, just like the rest of them. And,
I mean, he might crack more jokes than anybody, I feel like, in that one.
Donnie might still have the most jokes.
Okay, yep, you're right.
Yeah, help him a turtle and I can't get up and all that. And
I think that's just because they got what's his face. Why can't I think of his
Corey
name?
Feldman was
Corey
back.
Feldman back. Yeah. So they're like, all right, dude, we got you again. You're fresh out of rehab. Let's give you as many lines as possible.
Yeah. The thing is that by that point, Corey Feldman wasn't a big deal anymore. Like when they got him in the first movie, he was fresh off Lost Boys and The Burbs and License to Drive and all these movies that like were these big hits. And in 93, everyone wanted Jonathan Taylor Thomas. Nobody wanted Corey Feldman anymore. Yeah, Turtles 3, like I said, I think as a kid's action adventure comedy movie, I don't think it's bad. But as a Turtles movie, let alone the third Turtles movie in such a strong series, it's a piece of garbage. I'm sorry, but it's not worthy.
If it wasn't the Turtles, exactly, it would never be a movie that I ever would have watched ever again. It is 100% the Turtles. It is 100% the memories I have from my 6th birthday. Because like you said, there's no connection to the other 2 movies whatsoever, other than Casey showing up. I feel like that's it, because April feels totally different. Like Splinter feels totally different. Like they're still in the same subway station, but it feels even more bright and less dingy to an extent. You know what I mean? Like it feels
like a TV set.
Exactly. And yeah, like again, I'm not so blinded by the nostalgia that I know objectively it's a terrible movie. I get it. But again, it's Turtles, and that it's just fun to me. It is the nostalgia. That's what sucks me in. Like that's really what just the thesis for all this is. It's the nostalgia. It's why I keep buying the same action figures over and over. It's why I keep watching the same movies over and over. Like, it is just that powerful of a property to me to where I can overlook all of its weaknesses to appreciate the strengths about it.
And there, as much as I've ripped on Turtles 3 and gone over my horror story of the first time I saw it and everything, there is a lot of nostalgia for that movie still for me too. And I do like it for those reasons. Like when I was doing my ranking of all the Turtles movies on my YouTube channel, at first, like I said, I mentioned it, I think in the video for Turtles 3 is like, originally when I made my order before, because I rewatched some of the movies before doing those videos, before I rewatched them, I just put together a list of the order. I put TMNT 2006 below Turtles 3 just because I'm so nostalgic for Turtles 3. I'm like, oh yeah, it's better. Then I rewatched them. I'm like, dude, no, in no universe is Turtles 3 a better movie than Turtles 2006, like 2007, whatever year it was. It's like it's a way worse movie in every way. Yeah, it's not. I wouldn't, like I said, I wouldn't say it's a bad movie because that was pretty common fare for kids live action movies in the 90s. There was a lot of them on par with or worse than Turtles 3.
Well, I mean, like, let's think about what started coming out of that time. Three Ninjas. Surf Ninjas. Like all these cheesy ninja movies, you know what I mean? And again, I've talked about this in my comment section with many people. Like, I'm probably gonna have a shitty ninja movie marathon here coming up soon where I'm gonna knock. I haven't seen the original Three Ninjas in forever or Surf Ninjas. Like, I have to give them a spin here soon. Like, but that's the thing, ninjas just could not fail. Like, even G.I. Joe, my favorite subline of G.I. Joe was Ninja Force. Like, I just could not get enough ninjas in the early 90s.
Yeah.
And again, if you slap ninja on it, I was going to watch it at the time.
Yeah, I mean, one of my favorite, next to Mario, my second favorite video game series was Ninja Gaiden because
it's going too hard for me as a kid. I even as an adult, I tried picking up. I'm like, why is this game so hard?
I'm bad at games. I don't brag to be like, especially in this day and age where like every 11-year-old is a pro gamer. Like, I do not claim to be good at all games, but Ninja Gaiden, I can beat that game anytime I want. That I just know that game. Ninja Gaiden 2 and 3, I can beat them, but they take more work. Ninja Gaiden 1, I know that like, the back of my hand. Castlevania, that's a hard one I can beat anytime. But yeah, anyway, most games I'm freaking terrible at them. And even then, I'm not as good as like these speedrunners and these crazy guys who can like, they know every square inch of the game and stuff. But yeah, ninjas were just big. I've seen Surf Ninjas in recent years. I had to just like, I think I just stopped watching. I just went on my phone and started. It was just like you can only take so much Rob Schneider before like you just check out. I mean, at least you have Leslie Nielsen there. It's not his best, but at least he makes it manageable. And Ernie Reyes Jr. is in it also. But
right, because that's the thing. Because when I sort of saw that movie at the time, I didn't know who Rob Schneider was. You know what I mean? So that's why I'm excited to go back and watch it after seeing years of Rob Schneider. Because I feel like it's going to seem even more ridiculous to me now than it did when I was a kid.
Now that you've seen The Animal, right?
So
Rob Schneider's supposed to be 15 in that movie. He was like he was already over 30 in that movie. I don't know why they thought he would pass as a 15-year-old, but anyway, but yeah, Three Ninjas would be a trip. I haven't watched Three Ninjas since like 1993, probably.
It's been a while. It's been a long time since I've seen those movies.
I would love to revisit that, and they made a ton of. I didn't watch like Three Ninjas Kick Back and like the
Kickback was pretty good. Knuckle Up, nothing. And then I remember the one with Hulk Hogan, the high
Hogan one.
Yeah, I remember even renting that one as a kid, and I was like, I even don't think this one's good.
I remember Kick Back. I don't think I watched any of the other ones, but I've since then seen a lot about the Hulk Hogan. It's become pretty infamous since then. It's like considered one of the worst movies of all time by a lot of people. That had what was her name? The woman from what was that sitcom about the radio station? I can't remember. She was in there. She was the bad guy.
Won't Joe Rogan?
No. Oh, maybe. I don't know.
Talk or news radio?
No. This is one from like the 70s.
Oh. Radio station that I would
something know. Cincinnati. I don't remember what it is. But she was like the bombshell in that show, and then she was like the villain in the Three Ninjas. She was the mom in Night of the Roxbury and shit.
Oh
like,
yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, like go compliment your mom's new chin. She just got a new chin today. But anyway, we're getting way off topic. Yeah, Turtles 3. I still wouldn't. Yeah, I still have nostalgia for it. So even though I still think it's not a very good movie, and admittedly, I still create excuses for it because, like I said, like when I'm ranking movies, I'll still put it higher than it deserves to be, just because I'm still like, well, it's Turtles and it's from my childhood, and I owned the toys of the Samurai Turtles and stuff, and it's like, it gets you because it's Turtles. It still has that nostalgia for it. So
yeah, and at the end of the day, that's all it is for me too. Like I'll fully admit it. I know it's not a great movie, guys. I know it's not, but it means something to me. It's special, and again, like ninjas could just do no wrong for me. Like I don't know. It was a great part of the 90s. If you weren't there, you can't really grasp it, but just everything ninja was rad.
And just to set the record straight, there's never a part in Blue Hawaii with Elvis where he puts a fucking lampshade on his head. So I don't know. I don't know why Michelangelo and Splinter throw a lampshade on their head and say just like Elvis in Blue Hawaii. There's just jokes in that movie I don't get, like the Addams Family one and stuff. There's no punchline. They just say a thing, and it's like, why is that funny? There's some funny ones, there are some good ones in there, but even like Wet Willy Time, what's that about?
I knew that was coming. What would him?
It's Wet Willy.
I'm pretty sure that's how I learned how to do a Wet Willy. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's where I learned it.
So I didn't remember that one from when I was a kid. That was when I saw it again as an adult. I'm like, oh, what's up with all the Wet Willy things? Because I remember at some point when I was in high school, I acknowledged the expression Wet Willy. I was thinking like, this must be the dirtiest fucking thing ever. Like a Wet Willy must be really dirty. And then I'm like, oh no, never mind. You lick your finger, and you stick it in someone's ear. Yep. But, yeah, like why was that the Turtles like trademark gag in that movie? Like that was just like,
it was in the commercial. It was in the commercial. That's why.
All the commercial was just all like Donatello's shitty jokes, yep. And then like that, and then you watch the movie, and it's just you're waiting for all those shitty jokes, and everything in between is just boring.
And again, I think that's exactly what you said before with the Addams Family joke. I feel like half the jokes were made just for the trailer, like just to make a snappy trailer like that.
Yeah, I think so. And it's like, it's such like of the time humor that like Addams Family Values was probably being promoted at the same time.
Yep. So
like in that month of that year, that seemed like a really funny joke, but it had no life beyond that.
No,
nope. It's just weird. Now you watch it now, you're like,
oh,
what was that about? They had some that worked.
I do have one random closing thought and I guess not thought, but an Easter egg that I was going to touch on in the first movie. Did you know that Eastman and Laird are in the first movie?
I think, I could be wrong. I'm going to guess they were in the deleted scene at the end. I believe there's like a scene where they're signing off like movie rights or comic rights or something.
Oh, so that is a deleted scene, yeah, where it's Danny and April are trying to sell the comic rights.
Yeah.
To somebody.
And the turtles are like outside in the windows and everything. Yep. But where are they actually in the movie?
So the dump truck that Casey murdered Shredder with, they're the drivers that get out.
Oh shit!
The dump truck there. That's Eastman and Laird.
Oh, that's so cool. I know Eastman's the pizza delivery guy in the second Michael Bay movie. The turtles like swing by and grab like a pizza from him. He's not even watching; he's like on his phone. But that's crazy. I didn't know they were in the movie. That's awesome.
Yep. So now I slow down and just make sure I catch it every time because it's very, very, very brief. But Eastman just has the best oh shit look on his face, like. Yeah, it's back when he had like the perm and the mustache and stuff like that. Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. I never knew. I learned something new about that movie even today. So now the next time I watch it, I'm going to look for that. I'm going to have to
gonna blow your mind, man.
Well, that's I guess we did it. I guess we finally covered the 3 movies. It took 2 podcasts.
Podcasts, yeah. And again, I feel like that's kind of should be what we do from now on, because both the first 2 episodes I feel like we just keep cutting ourselves off. We're like, we have so much more to say. So I feel like if we get to the point where we're just rolling with it and we feel like we can just pick back up, that should be the way to go from now on.
Yeah, it should. We just do whatever we feel. And
exactly.
Next time we're going to be talking about.
our news section isn't really truly news. It's kind of just laughing about recent events and stuff like that. So
shitting on Playmates.
Right.
Yeah, next time we'll be talking about the games for the first time. We're going to talk about Shredder's Revenge and the Cowabunga collection and stuff. I guess inevitably we're going to end up talking about all the games, especially with the Cowabunga collection, because that's basically all the games. So, another great time talking about these movies again. Another great turtle convo for the records.
Absolutely, man. Always a blast. I think that's all we got for you guys.
Yep. Have a good one, guys.
All right. Peace.
Peace.